Hi, and welcome back to This Week in Voice, Season 4, Episode 9. Today is Halloween, October the 31st, 2019. My name is Bradley Metrock. I'm CEO of a company called Score Publishing based in Nashville, Tennessee. We are thrilled to have today in our recap episode of The Voice of Money, which just took place in New York City, Geraint John. Geraint, say hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Pretty good. And it takes me it's Geraint. I'm trying to get your name right, but like I've explained, I was born and raised in the Southeast United States, so I'm a little slow.
Well, I'm from a place called Wales, and so Geraint is a Welsh name, but I actually live in London, so every day, this is a daily struggle. It's a bit of an ongoing joke. And when I explain that my surname is John, that causes even more confusion, because,
You're just out here creating a bunch of problems is what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're thrilled to have you on the show. I want to yield the floor to you. Tell us who you are, what you do. But before you even do that, I want to thank you for traveling overseas to join us for The Voice of Money. We've piloted all these events. The Voice of Money was a pilot. It was a very successful one. But we're honored to have had you join us from across the pond. So I wanted to say that. And with that, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Geraint John, and I run an agency in London called Move Digital. So we've been going for, 8 years now, and we essentially have been historically providing search services to our customers. So we help people get found. We have a podcast called The Voice for Voice. I am the voice for voice. Well, that's what I call myself anyway. And we've, I think it's 35 episodes in which we chat about the voice revolution and all the incredible kind of news that kind of breaks every day to do with voice. It's my belief that voice is the new internet. It is going to change fundamentally the way that we buy things, the way that we interact with the internet. It's just an incredible, like we all, it's good, it's game changing, and it's a fascinating space to be in. So I'm working in London with brands, advising brands on how to implement the voice strategies. So it's just a fascinating and addictive space to be in.
Very cool. And we're honored to have you join us today, especially with your jet lag. You just flew back to the UK yesterday, and you got your children's Halloween coming up shortly. So we appreciate you making the time for us.
No problem at all.
With that, we will get to the news. And story number one is the recap of The Voice of Money. So The Voice of Money went well, great venue in New York City, great attendee mix, really pleased with how it went. We had John Best, a Best Innovation Group, open it up, who has really been a pioneer in applying voice technology to credit unions here in the United States. We heard from all sorts of folks. We heard from Emily Bender and Brandon Kaplan, both talking about marketing. We heard from a group called Payometry, talking about the role of card declines and the need to rethink card declines in a world of conversational AI and voice technology. We heard great presentations from SAP, from TD Ameritrade, from Alliance Bernstein. It was a good day. And I want to ask you, what stood out to you, if anything, more, what was your overall takeaway from the event? And did you enjoy yourself?
Well, firstly, yes, I did enjoy myself. I thought it was an amazing event. I think voice and money is just a fascinating mixture. I think there's a couple of challenges with voice. There's been not that breakout kind of skill or action that's really ignited with the public consciousness. So I think finance is something that, it's such an essential part of daily life of, money makes the world go round essentially. And voice for me is just the obvious way of, saving time and money. So checking your bank balance using voice, using your Amazon Buds is just a fascinating thought. So yeah, it was a really, really enjoyable day. I thought the agencies particularly gave a really good account of themselves, and I quite enjoyed the fact that they were so transparent in how they approach voice. I think voice SEO was something that was really I noticed that as a running theme throughout the day. The fact that was, I think that is really going to be high up on people's agendas. Search is still such an effective way of getting found, and it's an essential part of any marketing strategy, despite it being a bit of an overused word and having a bit of a bad reputation. It's hugely effective. And I think now brands are going to really put a huge emphasis on voice SEO, because they are, they'll want to get to the top, and especially, banks and financial products, financial services. So that was a really good takeaway. I thought John Best was amazing. Actually, it was such an awesome way to start, and I really enjoyed talking to him afterwards. Quite an interesting fella, and much respect to him. And I thought, he's been on top of this for a while now, isn't he? And it must be satisfying for him to see it really coming into fruition.
He's a sharp guy, yeah, and he's definitely been one of the original players, and coming in and carving out this super interesting niche with credit unions like he has, and on the retail banking side. I think that's one of the things I think about with voice in general is it's early. It's still early. We're a couple years in now with the mainstream voice assistants, but by any definition you want to apply, it's early. However, it's incredibly useful and timely for if you're to come in and carve out a niche within the space.
Yeah.
If you want to carve out a niche within, like Triad Health AI and applying voice to Parkinson's disease.
Yeah.
Best Innovation Group applying voice to credit unions. A lot of the work Skilled Creative has done has been on the publishing side, and what they've done in creating the Stephen King library.
Amazing.
It really sort of standard bearing. Stuff like what an IQdo has done, or different companies, like a SoundHound is another one. Companies that have really made their claim in the car. There's a lot of, it's interesting to me that there's a lot of companies whose technology allows them to play in any vertical or industry or sector that they choose. And so they sort of take this diverse, broad brush approach. But where I really think the most successful companies, will be, is planting the flag on a specific sector. Because it's just, if you try to bite off too much, you sort of get watered down, and it's like the jack of all trades is master of none.
Yeah.
I think that 2020 will see a little bit more specialization, with voice.
Yeah. Do you mean in terms of agencies, or in terms of
everybody? Yeah, agencies in particular, being able to craft voice experiences with a particular sector in mind, and some experience with the sector, some experience with the jargon, some experience with the type of transactional stuff that goes on conversationally. But not in addition to them, I think you may see that from some of the analytics providers.
Yeah.
I think you may see that from some other types of service providers. Ultimately you may end up seeing some of it from the big players themselves, like an Amazon or a Google. And in fact, you could argue you've already seen it in that Amazon has created like an Alexa for hospitality business unit. an Alexa gaming business unit, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a sort of an aside to your points, but it's worth sort of harping on. Glad you were able to be there for it, and yeah, it was great to meet you there. I'm going to go on to story number 2, which is our VoiceBot.ai story of the week. VoiceBot.ai. Once again, if you're listening or watching the podcast and you don't know what that is, that's sad. Stop the podcast, go to the browser, type in VoiceBot.ai, and commence reading.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's just, it's, I think, my most visited website of the last 18 months.
Yeah. It's a must. It really, the way I describe it, Geraint, is that it's almost disqualifying if you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of a lot of folks we talk to or whatever, and it's not quite like that, and it's not meant to be a rude statement, but it's like, if you haven't found your way there are limits to how serious you actually must be.
Yeah.
Story of the week: Amazon expands Alexa utility bill payment feature worldwide. Now, this was announced at a different conference that preceded the announcement preceded the Voice of Money, but yet the conversation at times at the Voice of Money came back to this subject. I want to flat out ask you, is this feature a big deal, or is it insignificant and overblown? And then separately, if it is overblown, do you think it has a potential to grow into a big feature? Share with me and the audience your perspective on what this means, and if you think it's a big deal.
I think it's a very, very big deal. I think it's probably the most significant. Well, there's been some big news over the last month, really, but this is just because, for me, voice, like I keep on saying, it's about making things easier, saving time, and essentially saving money. Now, if you're able to pay for your utility bills using voice, then I think that's going to have quite a significant kind of effect on people actually using these devices for more than just timing eggs and listening to Jay-Z, because we know that there's a discovery issue at the moment, and people, they can't quite work out how to use the Alexa app, how to enable skills. There's not the skills there that really, like a mobile apps. The mobile app, this is a really good way of looking at it. The mobile apps that I use are banking, so business bank, personal bank, credit card, travel, so Ubers, city mappers, things like that, and also the huge opportunity now is that people like British Gas in the UK, people that you pay your utility bills, it's quite a tedious process, isn't it? Logging in, setting up the direct debit, logging in and check. I mean, to be able to get this information via voice and to be able to actually pay for it is really, for me, a significant step into making voice more mainstream. Add that by you've got your Amazon Buds, and you're walking around and you can actually do it while you're out and about without even having to look at your phone or open up an app, is just incredible. And I think there'll be a new wave of entrepreneur businesses that set up now, bill payments, this sort of thing, with voice in mind as the launch platform, in the same way that, the Ubers and Deliveroos used mobile apps to launch their platforms. So I think it's absolutely huge. And I think the timing of it, after the Voice Everywhere announcements, is no coincidence. Amazon knew exactly what it was doing. First, let's make voice everywhere, because it's Amazon's strategy, as we know, to make voice everywhere. It's going to flow, as David Bowie said, it's going to flow, freely. He was a master of predicting these things, making into predictions.
Great reference.
Yeah, and I think that this is it now. We're in a new era whereby we're walking around and we're able to pay for stuff. Imagine that. You're walking on your commute, you're walking to the train station, and you can actually pay your gas bill while you're walking. You can check your bank balance. You can, and I think from a financial health point of view, it's awesome as well, because it helps people be more in control of their finances. So huge open goal for banks, for for these type of companies to really make people's lives easier and better by implementing voice strategies across all devices. It's not just Amazon; it has to be everywhere.
I get the sense that it's a big announcement as well, and it comes at a time where there's an outcry for more functionality, more and deeper, features. The whole thing about, and really it's some voice bot research that's shown, as well as some others have shown it too. People are they're asking the weather and they're asking to play music. It's exactly what you said at the start. And so there's this search for what's next.
Yeah.
And Amazon rolling out this tightly integrated bill pay solution. What a beautiful thing. Because I recounted a story at the Voice of Money.
Yeah.
My wife and I moved into our house. We bought in 2007. We've been living here ever since. And at some point along the way, she said, "Hey, can you go sign us up for auto pay with the water utility?" So first of all, I had to find where that was. That was not trivial. That was in this stuck in the middle of nowhere in Nashville, where I live. Then, then I went there. I had 2 forms of proof of residence with me, thinking that's probably one more than I needed. No, it was one less. So I had to come back home and find a third one. That took another day or so. Then I went back. Then they're like, "Okay, you got to fill all this stuff out." Then it took it's every bit of 8 or 9 or 10 days for them to then follow up with an email that said, "Okay, you can probably do this. You're approved to do this," or whatever they were looking at. And now you got to do this, that, and the other thing. You're not done. No. So all in all, it took 20, 22, 25 days. It was a little shy of a month to get that set up. So you're talking reducing that and to 40, 45 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever, conversationally with Alexa. I love it. And so I think Amazon is onto something. I think they're uniquely positioned to execute it.
I agree.
I'm a fan.
Yeah. I don't know what Apple are playing at.
Apple could have done it too, but
I think they're waiting. My view is, I'll just say this, what my view is on Apple.
Sure.
Apple. I think they're holding back on voice. I really do. I think, they're making so much money with their other products. But I think that voice is their trick, the card that it's got up their sleeve. I think soon developers, that new kind of mobile developers, will have Siri in mind when creating mobile apps. So mobile apps will all be navigated by voice, and there'll be some killer blow up Siri-enabled mobile apps, which will ignite the public consciousness globally. And then there'll be a huge war then between, there's a war already, but there'll be even more of a war between the 3 main, competitors. I'm discounting Facebook.
Well, yeah. Well, as you should. I used to have your enthusiasm for Apple, and then I just got browbeat into submission over time by their by their relentless pursuit of mediocrity.
What do you think of the new pods?
They look good. I've seen the lines. Looks like people are responding to that. My issue with the AirPods has been that there's been sort of a muted, people saying shh when you talk about it, criticism that the frequency it uses to communicate from ear to ear crosses through your brain.
Yeah.
And the
Oh, wow.
Spectrum, the Spectrum, they, I say they, some voices that were told, you stop talking about this now. Um, there's been concerns about, different potential negative health outcomes coming from that.
Oh,
And,
gosh.
and so it's something that people, I'm sure it's a type of thing that would take a long time. But the troubling thing about AirPods is that people leave them in all day.
Yeah. Well,
And,
I've got them in now. Yes.
yeah, well, it's one thing to, like, have something in for a little bit, but then it's another thing to leave it in all day. And here's Apple saying absolutely nothing about it at all. That's my problem with them. But at least they've made a good product,
Yeah.
so I'll give them that. But I would welcome Apple becoming a competent player in the space that cultivates a developer ecosystem, because, and this will move us into story number 3.
Yeah.
It would More competition in this space is necessary, because it's going to push Amazon and it's going to push Google. And if Apple comes in, they'll push Samsung, and Microsoft staying relevant will be good for everybody as well. We need that. So
Yeah.
that's my thoughts on that. That brings us to story number 3. So the Samsung Developer Conference is going on this week as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And just wanted to sort of touch on that. The article that's mentioned here on the list of articles for This Week in Voice today is a pretty nice roundup of some of the things they rolled out. If there's something that stood out, if you saw any of that, you can mention that, Geraint. But really what I wanted to ask you is your thoughts on the Bixby ecosystem and Bixby as it sits right now. Competitive, uncompetitive, you're happy with it, unhappy, your thoughts?
I think could be the secret, the one that surprises us, Bixby, just because of the sheer number of devices sold. And the developer network looks pretty cool. Same as Amazon as well. What I really like about Amazon is that they are pro developer. I help organize the Alexa Dev meetup in London. So it's a really lovely community, whereas Google is completely closed and they're not interested. And I think Samsung Bixby is similar. I mean, it's not as good as Alexa, and it's not as good as Google Assistant, but I think there's a huge opportunity for them to encourage developers to create Bixby solutions, which will be unique to their platform. So I think you can't ignore it, and just the amount of money that they've got as well, unbelievable. So yeah, it can't be ignored. That's my thought.
Complete agreement. And I think that it's easy to forget with Amazon rolling out Alexa. It seemed like they moved with a lot of agility, and they did.
Yeah.
It seemed like they moved rapidly, and they did. But even with all that, it still took them. I mean, was the Alexa ecosystem after the first 6 months where the Bixby ecosystem is right now? No. And not only no, emphatic no, not even close. So, yes, Bixby benefits from Amazon blazing the trail. So everything's easier for Samsung because Amazon blazed the trail.
Yeah, well, they've watched everyone make their mistakes and learned from everyone, and now it's time. It's about the technology and how many users you've got. Well, they've got amazing technology, they've got lots of users, and and they've got a community. So
I think Samsung's had a great year.
Yeah, I think an awesome opportunity, a Bixby focused agency, or I think there'll be an appetite for that sort of thing.
I love that. I think that's great. I think 2020, you will see, you talk about specialization and the conversation we had earlier. It would not be a huge shock to see an agency come in and specifically focus on Bixby that's maybe like more hardware IoT focused.
Yeah.
So I share your enthusiasm for what Samsung's doing.
It's quite interesting actually, because on the flight home from the conference, I was really quite inspired. I met some really interesting people, and you know what it's like. You're away from home. You're kind of in a space where you're thinking and you're being creative. And what struck me was, in terms of having a real defined focus as my agency, I think Alexa discovery is something that I really want to focus on. So helping brands and skill creators get discovered and get users. I think that's a huge, huge market, because that seems to be, that's the one thing that's missing. It's getting people to actually understand, educate, and use your skill or action, I guess. So I think that's something that I'm really going to be focusing on.
I'll have to send you a copy of my new book.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah, which addresses that exact thing. Well, I won't delve into that. I don't mind shameless self-promotion, but we are on a time crunch. We're going to transition to story number 4, and let me pull it up here. In honor of Halloween, the name of the article is "What Makes Voice Assistants Creepy?" And this article from Retail Wire, it talks about a number of different data points related to how people are using voice assistants. And the one thing that stands out, and I'm going to read this verbatim, more respondents found it creepy, 41%, than cool, 32%, that voice assistants provide personalized product information and suggested products for them and their family. Related to voice assistants' promise, significantly more respondents found it creepy, 69%, than cool, 14%, that companies understand their shopping habits so well that they're able to use artificial intelligence to choose and automatically order products on their behalf. Very interesting, that paragraph. The question for you is that consumer sentiment of it's creepy and, ooh, it's a little intrusive. It feels ephemeral. It feels like a signpost we're passing on the way towards progress, just something that happens. People feel like things are intrusive until they understand how valuable they are. The value proposition hasn't been explained. Do you think that's the case, that this is just temporary, not much? Do you feel like it is a permanent sort of feeling of humanity, and that, this is a major obstacle for us to overcome to get more context-driven, proactive voice assistants in our lives? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely natural, really. As a society, you've got people are just different and they have different views, and people, when they don't understand something, when it's new, I'm sure they felt the same about the internet. They don't understand something and its value, then they're going to be immediately negative and doubtful about it. And I think it's just an education thing. I think there's been some quite negative, certainly in the UK, articles. The main kind of newspapers publish quite negative articles about voice and the listening issues and things like that. And I think there's so I don't think that's helped, but I think we will overcome it. But I think we're not using voice to even like 10% of its full. It's just, we're not using it for its full capacity. It's just something that we, like I say, I keep on saying, at the moment, the majority of people are just listening to Jay-Z and timing eggs. And once they start paying their bills and buying stuff, and once it starts making their life easier, then there'll be a little bit more, I think sympathetic is the right word, and a bit more tolerable. So I think there's an air of inevitability about it. These guys probably voted Brexit as well. So,
I'm not touching that.
No, let's not go there.
Yeah. Geraint, thank you very, very much for this time fitting this show in, fitting in the voice of money as well. We're honored you joined us in both situations. Thank you for sharing not just your time, but your expertise and experience with me and the audience. Greatly appreciated.
Nice one, mate. Really, it was really great to meet you anyway last week, and looking forward to doing more stuff next year.
You got that right, and we'll talk about that very soon. For This Week in Voice, Season 4, Episode 9, Halloween edition. Thank you for listening, watching, if you're watching on YouTube. Until next time.